Let's talk about Mackenzie Shirilla, the girl who was driving calmly and then all of a sudden hit the gas and was going 100 miles per hour while her boyfriend and friend were in the vehicle with her. What psychology traits does she align with most? And are her parents just making things worse? While the court system ultimately classified this as a deliberate act of violence, the human mind behind the wheel presents an entirely different puzzle. Welcome back to Emo Coconut. Today we are scratching past the surface level labels of the Mackenzie Shirilla case. Because if you've scrolled through the true crime side of the internet lately, you've probably seen the generic consensus that she's just an entitled mean girl or a cold-blooded sociopath. But honestly, it's way more unsettling. What caused Mackenzie to go 100 miles per hour in those last 3 seconds? Why did the steering wheel turn left, then right, and then straight again right before crashing? Initially, the defense claimed it was POTS, which is a medical condition that causes you to lose consciousness. But that didn't make any sense because if she had lost consciousness, her foot would have eased off the gas pedal. But after inspecting the car's black box, it's shown that the gas was hitting 100 miles per hour all the way up until that vehicle slammed into the wall. Immediately they went, I know I was the one driving, but it's still not my fault. And this is called an external locus of control. When facing a massive existential threat like accountability for taking 2 lives, a highly fragile ego cannot handle the moral weight of it all. The brain subconsciously or consciously latches on to some sort of reasoning to scream, I am the victim of my body, not the perpetrator of a crime. And we actually see this in the recent documentary that came out. Unfortunately, the 2 males in the car lost their lives, yet the driver, Mackenzie, remained alive. When she woke up, she asked if the friend was okay, but not her long-term boyfriend. As the police began researching deeper into the case, they found texts between Mackenzie and her boyfriend, like, treat the girl who would die for you a little better. That's kind of dark, and this is where we begin seeing malignant narcissism, which is a severe behavioral syndrome where someone believes that they are extremely important, of course, but they can also have aggressive tendencies, antisocial behavior, and a pathological need for control. So to put that in terms of this case, Mackenzie's mind didn't see her intense emotions as love or mutual connection. No, she probably saw it as entitlement. And to add to that, she was weaponizing her devotion to justify some abusive behaviors. And when you lack internal emotional containment, you don't have a middle gear. You operate in extremes. You either love someone perfectly or they are the enemy. You're either perfectly fine or the world is ending. And we see these exact emotions captured chronologically in her text records. For example, Mackenzie texted Dominic that she was going to kill someone simply because she couldn't get a ride home. Shortly after, when the argument escalated, she texted, I just want to bang my head on the wall till I'm dead. There's something called borderline splitting, which I actually find super fascinating. It's a cognitive distortion where things, situations, or even people are viewed in all or nothing categories, meaning they're entirely good or entirely bad. And sometimes that can lead to severe emotional volatility. This is a catastrophic failure of emotional containment. You see, when an individual cannot control an external circumstance, their internal psyche collapses. The threat shifts instantly from externalized homicidal rage to internalized suicidal ideation with zero middle ground. And this created a highly volatile, explosive baseline where a minor interpersonal rejection wasn't just an argument, it felt like an absolute life or death crisis. Which brings us to the morning of July 31st. Weeks prior, Dominic had sent definitive breakup texts to Mackenzie. He wanted out of the relationship dynamic. He was establishing a permanent boundary. And for a personality profile built on malignant control, a permanent breakup isn't just a sad event. It triggers something terrifying. This is where annihilation anxiety comes into play. It feels catastrophic. It's a feeling of dread that the person's identity, their ego, their existence is being erased entirely by an external event. When a deeply fragile, control dependent ego faces permanent rejection, it experiences what clinical psychologists call a psychic death. To avoid the agonizing reality of being left behind and losing control, the mind can pivot to a dark, ultimate alternative: total physical annihilation. I mean, look at the physical forensic evidence. The black box of the car proves she floored the accelerator pedal to 100% capacity and never touched the brakes. In her mind, this wasn't a random accident. This was an expression of absolute control, allegedly. If she could not possess him in life, she would ensure no one else could either, permanently binding their fates together in a fraction of a second, allegedly. Now, what really drove the public absolutely insane wasn't just the crash itself. It was what happened afterwards. In the months leading up to her arrest, Mackenzie was caught on camera attending a Halloween concert, partying, and posting a bunch on TikTok. And it was an eerie feeling because it seemed like she cared more about her public persona, her social perception, and popularity. And we know that grief varies per person, of course, but you would think that after accidentally taking the lives of two people, one of which was supposedly your whole world, that there would be a little more grief there. This is where traumatic dissociation comes into play, which is an involuntary mental defense mechanism that severs that connection between a person's thoughts, their memory, and actions to survive that catastrophic reality. So, we can't be sure if this is what she was experiencing, but it is very possible that this is how she was able to seemingly move on so quickly with an ordinary life. To add to the partying and the unusual behavior after the crash, two things stood out to officials. One is what we mentioned before, that she was asked about Davion, who she had just met a few weeks prior, but not about her boyfriend Dom, who she had been dating for 5 years. Weird, right? The online theory circulating question if maybe she asked this question because she was trying to figure out if there were any other witnesses remaining from moments before the crash. Someone who was still alive to tell the tale of what actually happened within that car. Because Mackenzie's answer to everyone who asked about the story, what happened in the car that led to that car accident? She said the same answer time and time again, that she had blacked out. But later on, officials found out that a phone call was made to her mother after she was airlifted to the hospital. Mackenzie was asking her mom if she should just tell officials that she had a seizure. Interestingly enough, her and her mom speak in what sounds like this made up language. It's actually called Pig Latin, but thankfully, police know how to decode this. So these two questions really did not help her case in the matter. So she was charged with the murder for both victims. Following her sentencing, jail phone calls between Mackenzie and her mother, Natalie, were leaked to the public. Instead of reflecting on the tragedy or discussing the lives lost, the entire conversation focused on how the trial was unfair. They actively mocked the judge, calling her so mean for daring to call out the mother's behavior during the trial. Specifically, her public statements insinuating that one of the victims' lives, the friend, somehow carried less meaning. The leaked audio is a goldmine for family systems theory. Online commenters believe it proves that even after a full judicial trial and a whole life sentence, the family ego remained entirely intact. They completely rejected accountability, effortlessly reframing themselves as the true victims of a mean judge. And to understand how a child develops this level of psychological insulation, you have to look at how this family operated behind closed doors. We can obviously already tell a lot about them from this phone call and her dad yelling, "We know you're innocent," as soon as she was led out of the room after being charged. And public accounts and family records reveal a textbook deployment of golden child versus scapegoat dynamic. Despite Mackenzie's severe behavioral issues at school and highly documented relationship volatility, she was fiercely protected as the family's flawless golden child. Meanwhile, her sister was explicitly cast as the bad daughter, routinely facing intense family discipline for very minor issues, including a public instance where she was severely punished for hiding food under her bed, which is so sad and telling in and of itself because why was she having to hide food under her bed in the first place? While we can't know their private thoughts, behavioral analysts who study these specific structures frequently point to a phenomenon called maternal narcissism by proxy. In these environments, a parent will pathologically favor the child who most easily reflects the parent's own desire for social status, conventional attractiveness, or social media validation, even. By playing a friend to the sibling who meets society's superficial standards, the parents vicariously feed their own egos as well. Conversely, the sibling who doesn't fit that mold is hyper-criticized or hyper-controlled even. When a child is caught hiding food under a bed, experts immediately look at whether food withholding or extreme body image coercion was being used as a weapon of control within the household. Mackenzie's destructive entitlement didn't just come out of nowhere. It was carefully grown in a home system that rewarded superficiality, erased personal accountability, and severely penalized anyone who threatened the family's pristine illusion. The true tragedy of this case lies at a dark intersection where unresolved relationship anxiety meets an environment that completely refused to establish boundaries. When a family system teaches a child that their ego is above reality, reality eventually answers back at 100 miles per hour. Where do you think the line falls between a psychological defense mechanism and genuine conscious intent? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next deep dive right here on Emo Coconut.